Last time on BearOnStilts.
What about the original then, you may ask? That'll be for another time.
Jeez. Holy shit. Like, this is like $200+. There's a, okay, no, that's clearly a bootleg copy. Okay, yeah, $5 on the eShop. Let's go.
I've talked about every other Shantae in the series at this point. Risky's Revenge, The Pirate's Curse, and now we'll be looking at the original for the Game Boy Color. Compared to the others, the original seems to be the most ambitious of the three games. There's a lot of interesting ideas and features that just never make a return in later titles. In the end though, all three of these games are fairly similar in a lot of ways, and despite this one being the most unique in the series, it's hard to say how it holds up. And like all the other games, you play as Shantae, the guardian half-genie of Scuttletown. Risky Boots, the villain, is up to no good, steals a steam engine, and plans on using it to make a doomsday device. To power it, she plans on gathering 4 magical stones, and you need to find them before she does. Pretty typical story. Combat is pretty similar to all the other games as well, where you attack with Shantae's hair. I have to say though, Shantae's attack distance in this one feels just a little short. This might be a consequence of being on the Game Boy Color though, where they chose to have the character take up quite a bit of the screen. This was a common choice on the handheld back in the day because screens were very small, and when you decide to scale down things to console size, you start getting problems like Super Mario Land. And that game was a bit of a pain to control with the constant screen tearing and the microscopic characters, while still demanding precision. It might not look obvious in the video, but if you've never used a Game Boy before, or any screen that just tears and blurs with motion, you'll have to trust me on this. It's a good thing that Shantae feels too large rather than too small. There are over 10 items here to purchase for various situations, ranging from extremely useful to downright useless. Bolts of magic for damage from a distance, potions for healing, exit candy to leave labyrinths, and vanish cream to make you invincible for a short period of time. But then you get into some of the weird ones. These storm puffs are borderline worthless. It's almost always much quicker and easier to just whip someone to death, or use another means than to line this thing up just right for damage. Now it is used in an interesting puzzle, and for breaking the game if you kill yourself mid-dialogue box. And you could get some pretty hilarious results too if you mess with this for a bit. But other than that, there's no reason to be getting these at all. There's also new combat moves to buy, like this backflip kick and this elbow charge. And I didn't use them all that much, but they were pretty interesting. Even though there's such a mixed bag with these available items and upgrades, I really appreciate all these options. It kinda gives a depth to the world. With the 4 stones comes 4 labyrinths, and each labyrinth has a dance transformation to get. You have the monkey and the elephant, which made a return in Risky's Revenge, but then you also have the spider to climb background walls, and the harpy to fly. There is one more transformation though, and it's kinda odd how you get it. You might notice that the colors and the contrast of my Shantae footage jumps around a bit, and this wasn't a mistake. This game was made for the Game Boy Color when it was effectively dead, and the Game Boy Advance had already been out for a while, so it seems like the developer decided to add a Game Boy Advanced Enhance mode, where if you were playing the game on the Game Boy Advance, it enhances the graphics and makes a 5th dance available for players. I actually didn't even know this was a feature until I arrived at the town that offered the dance, but only to advanced genies. So half of the time I played on the Game Boy Color, and the later half I played on Game Boy Advance. The eShop port of this game is actually stuck in Game Boy Color mode, and you can't get this dance, which is a real bummer. This special transformation turns you into a Tinkerbat, which are the same dudes as Risky's henchmen. It's like a monkey, spider, elephant in one. It can climb walls, including ones in the background, ram and break things, and can even attack as per normal like Shantae while in transformation, something that normally requires upgrades to do. But you're not required to do this to progress if you don't want to. They serve more as a bonus if you can find them, rather than forcing you to backtrack for them. And don't get me wrong, backtracking is definitely here. I personally don't find it too overbearing though, and there's a really interesting world here to travel through despite its problems. And one of these problems is definitely some of the enemies you'll be finding on the overworld. See, this game features a day and night cycle, with some fairly interesting effects on the world. There are a handful of locations that are only accessible during day or night. These are definitely nice small touches, but the way they handle enemy difficulty is not. When nighttime hits, none of the enemies change what they do or where they are or anything like that. Instead, they just decided to add a couple hit points to them once night falls. This becomes incredibly annoying because there are many enemies that already take a little too long to kill, and this just makes them take even longer. They could have done something a little more meaningful for difficulty or even flavor. The only enemy that has this is the snail, which hides in his shell when nighttime falls. This isn't exactly that creative, but at least it doesn't serve strictly to waste my time. One decision I really do like that they made with Shantae was to include multiple towns to visit. Future games only had Scuttletown as the city to take care of all your store and quest related needs. Spreading out NPCs and items across multiple towns makes for a more immersive experience, and it makes the world just feel good. It might be a pain to have to go to a specific town to buy a specific thing, but each town has its own Squidward temple. Squids can be found in labyrinths, and if you bring 4 of them to one temple, you'll learn a teleportation dance which allows you to teleport to a town immediately, so you don't have to walk to a specific place. A lot of other item hunts in Shantae games amounts to, well, you need to find it if you want to advance, but here it gives you an incentive without feeling like you need to do it or that it's telling you to. You'll want to find the squids to fast travel, but you don't necessarily need to do it. And I think this goes for a lot of things in the game. You'll want to find the animal transformation upgrades because it feels better to attack in creature form. You'll want to find all the fireflies just to figure out what's in this room. I still can't find them all. What is in here? I like that there's a lot of things you can do because you want to, not because you have to just to keep playing the game. If I had to rank the Shantae series, I would say Pirate's Curse is definitely my favorite, but the original would come up in second, with Risky's Revenge coming in last. Pirate's Curse had a compelling enough world and atmosphere to keep me interested, but it absolutely knocked gameplay out of the park, and I haven't played many games of this type that were quite as fun. Risky's Revenge didn't have as solid of gameplay as Pirate's Curse, but it wasn't bad, and it tried to offer up something compelling. I do believe it ultimately failed to deliver on that though, but overall it wasn't a bad experience. Although Game Boy Color Shantae is about as fun in the gameplay department as Risky's Revenge, it did succeed in giving me something compelling. I always feel like something is lost in a game when it spends too much time telling you what to do next. It takes the adventure out of adventure game. The original Shantae didn't really have this problem. And for the record, I have no nostalgia for this game. This is the first time I'm playing it for this review. This is just my opinion too though. I recognize a lot of other people may not feel quite the same. If we look at all 3 of the games in the series side by side, Shantae for the Game Boy Color is probably the longest. A lot of ease of access has been sacrificed in an attempt to give the game better immersion and length, and not everyone will agree that it succeeded. And if it doesn't for you, that leaves you with what could feel like a clunky mess. You may not tolerate the need to hunt down abilities to fast travel. You may not tolerate enemies who take far too long to kill once night hits. And you may not tolerate it being the only game with lives in the series. Ran out of them when you were almost done with a dungeon? Welcome back to the last save point. And if you don't appreciate or tolerate these touches, you will feel like you're wasting a lot of time playing this game. Despite this, I would definitely recommend this game to people who can look past these choices, or even appreciate them. If this game sounds up your alley at all, give it a try. It's only $5 on the eShop for your 3DS. Or $300 if you wanna own it, for real.